The morning sun cast long shadows across the empty boxes that still littered the living room floor of the Johnson family's new home. 16-year-old Zara sat on the window seat, knees pulled up to her chest, watching as unfamiliar cars drove past on the tree-lined street. Everything about Ridgewood felt different from the busy city they'd left behind. The quiet, the space between houses, even the way people smiled and waved when they walked by. "You doing okay there, kiddo?" Zara turned to see her father, Thomas Johnson, leaning against the doorframe. His uniform was crisp and new, the badge on his chest catching the sunlight. The words Chief of Police still seemed strange next to his name. "Yeah, just thinking," Zara said, turning back to the window. "I still don't get why we had to move here." "I was finally getting comfortable at Westside." Thomas crossed the room and sat beside her. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen too much but still believed in people. The fine lines around his eyes deepened when he smiled. "I know this is hard," he said, "but this job, it's an opportunity I couldn't pass up. Ridgewood needs someone to help rebuild trust between the police department and the community." He paused, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "And after everything that happened last year, I thought maybe we both needed a fresh start." Zara nodded but didn't respond. Last year had been rough. The bullying, the fights, the day she came home with her favorite jacket torn and dirty words scrawled across her locker. Her dad had tried to help, but being the daughter of a police officer in a neighborhood where police weren't always trusted had only made things worse. "Hey," Thomas said, nudging her playfully. "Remember what Grandma always says?" Despite herself, Zara smiled. "New place, new face, new grace, and that's right. And I have a good feeling about Ridgewood. People here are ready for change, and so are we." He stood up and straightened his uniform. "Now how about we finish unpacking your room before I head to the station? Your first day of school is tomorrow, and I want you to get a good night's sleep." Zara rolled her eyes but followed him upstairs. Her new room was bigger than her old one, with a bay window overlooking the backyard. They spent the next hour hanging up clothes and arranging books on shelves, falling into an easy rhythm of conversation and comfortable silence. "Dad?" Zara asked as she taped a poster of her favorite band to the wall. "What if it's the same here? What if the kids at school?" Thomas stopped what he was doing and turned to face his daughter. "Look at me, Zara. You are smart, you are strong, and you have nothing to prove to anyone. If anyone gives you trouble, you know what to do. Walk away, tell a teacher. Call you if it gets serious," Zara recited. "And remember what I taught you about defending yourself. Only as a last resort," she finished. "I know, Dad," Thomas smiled, pride evident in his eyes. "That's my girl. And remember, things are different here. I'm not just Officer Johnson anymore. I'm Chief Johnson." "That carries weight." "Great," Zara muttered. "So now they'll have even more reason to think I'm a snitch." Thomas sighed and sat on the edge of her bed. "I know my job doesn't always make things easier for you. But I want you to know that what I do, trying to make communities safer, building bridges between people, I do it for you, for your future." He checked his watch and stood up. "I've got to head to the station. First official day and all. Already? But we just got here yesterday." "Crime doesn't take a break for moving day," he said with a wink. "There's lasagna in the fridge for dinner. Just heat it up when you're hungry." "Be careful," Zara called as he headed for the door. "Always am," he replied with a wave. After her father left, Zara finished organizing her room, then wandered through the house trying to make it feel like home. She heated up the lasagna and ate alone at the kitchen table, scrolling through social media and checking out pictures of Ridgewood High School online. The sound of the doorbell startled her. Cautiously, she approached the front door and peered through the peephole. A girl about her age stood on the porch holding what looked like a plate of cookies. Zara opened the door slightly. "Hi? Hey there. I'm Lily Chen. My family lives next door," the girl said, gesturing to the blue house to their right. "Mom saw you guys moving in yesterday and sent these over as a welcome gift." She held out the plate of chocolate chip cookies. "They're still warm." Zara opened the door wider and accepted the plate. "Thanks, I'm Zara Johnson. Nice to meet you, Zara. Are you starting at Ridgewood High? What grade? Junior. Starting tomorrow." Lily's face lit up. "Me too, that's awesome. Look, if you want, I can meet you at the corner tomorrow morning and we can walk together. The school's only about 10 minutes away." Zara hesitated, surprised by the friendly gesture. Sure. That would be great, actually. Cool. 7:30, okay? The bell rings at 8 tall, but it's good to get there a little early your first day. 7:30 works, Zara agreed. After Lily left, Zara found herself smiling. Maybe her dad was right. Maybe things would be different here. Later that evening, as she laid out clothes for her first day, she heard the front door open. Dad? That you? Yeah, it's me, Thomas called back, his footsteps heavy as he made his way to the kitchen. Zara followed him downstairs and found him standing at the counter, loosening his tie with one hand and holding a folder in the other. How was your first day as the big boss? She asked, sliding onto a bar stool. Thomas chuckled. Interesting. Lots of handshakes, lots of paperwork, lots of people telling me how things have always been done around here. He put down the folder and opened the refrigerator. I see you found the lasagna. Any good? It was okay. Oh, and the neighbors brought cookies. She pointed to the plate, now half empty. I may have eaten a few. A few, huh? Thomas laughed, grabbing one for himself. So, all ready for tomorrow? Zara shrugged. I guess. The girl next door, Lily, offered to walk with me to school. That's great. See, making friends already. He bit into the cookie and nodded appreciatively. These are good. We should bake something to return the favor this weekend. Dad, nobody wants your rock-hard biscuits. Hey, my biscuits are not rock-hard. They're rustic. He grinned, the tension of the day visibly melting away. So tell me about this Lily. She seem nice? Yeah, she does. It's just one day, though. Don't get too excited. Thomas held up his hands in surrender. Not getting excited. Just happy you're giving this place a chance. They fell into comfortable conversation, with Thomas sharing stories about the characters he'd met at the station, and Zara showing him the schedule she'd received in the mail. For a while, it felt like old times before badges and uniforms had complicated their lives. As they were cleaning up, Thomas paused, his expression turning serious. Zara, there's something I want you to understand about why I took this job. Zara leaned against the counter, fighting. Ridgewood has had some problems, tension between different communities, incidents involving the police that weren't handled well. The mayor brought me in specifically because of my experience with community policing. He ran a hand over his close-cropped hair. What I'm trying to say is, some people might have opinions about me, about my role here before they even get to know me. And that might affect how they see you. Story of my life, Zara murmured, I know, and I'm sorry for that. But I also need you to remember that what we're doing here matters. Building bridges, breaking down walls, it starts with everyday interactions. How you carry yourself, how you treat others. He looked at her intently. You might face some challenges, but I believe in you, Zara. You're stronger than you know. Zara nodded, understanding the weight of his words. I'll be fine, Dad, really. Later, as she lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of their new neighborhood, Zara thought about what her father had said. She'd spent so much time being angry about moving, about leaving her few friends behind, that she hadn't considered that maybe, just maybe, Ridgewood could be a place where things were different. With that thought in mind, she drifted off to sleep, dreaming of fresh starts and new beginnings in a town that didn't know her yet, a town where she could be whoever she wanted to be. Tomorrow would tell if Ridgewood High was really any different from the schools she'd left behind. But for tonight, at least, hope felt possible. The hallways of Ridgewood High buzzed with the usual Monday morning chaos as Zara pulled books from her locker. 3 weeks had passed since her first day, and she was finally starting to find her rhythm. The school was smaller than her previous one, which made navigating between classes easier. But it also meant everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. Hey, new girl. Lily appeared beside her, leaning against the neighboring locker. In the short time they'd known each other, Lily had become Zara's unofficial guide to all things Ridgewood. Ready for Fletcher's chemistry quiz? I was up until midnight studying the periodic table. Zara nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I think so. My dad helped me make flashcards last night. Speaking of your dad, Lily lowered her voice. People are still talking about how he handled that situation at the town council meeting last week. Standing up to Mayor Wilson like that? Bold move for the new chief. Zara tried not to show her surprise. Her father hadn't mentioned any confrontation with the mayor. What happened? Before Lily could answer, the warning bell rang. Tell you at lunch, she promised, hurrying off to her first class. Throughout the morning, Zara found herself distracted, wondering what her father had done that had the school talking. He'd been working late most nights, coming home tired but determined. Making progress, he'd say when she asked, but never with much detail. By lunchtime, Zara had pushed the thoughts aside, focusing instead on surviving the chemistry quiz, which wasn't nearly as difficult as Lily had made it sound. She was heading toward their usual table when she noticed a small crowd gathering near the back of the cafeteria. "What's going on?" she asked Anthony, one of Lily's friends who'd welcomed Zara into their group. Anthony rolled his eyes. "Brianna Taylor doing what she does best, making someone else's day miserable." Zara followed his gaze to where a tall girl with perfectly styled blonde hair stood over a younger student who was desperately trying to clean what looked like spilled milk from his shirt and backpack. "Look at him," Brianna was saying loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear. "Can't even drink milk without wearing it." "What are you, 5? The boy, who couldn't have been older than 14, kept his eyes down, his face flushed with embarrassment as Brianna's friends laughed. "That's Jackson Miller," Anthony explained quietly. "Freshman. Smart kid, but Brianna's been on his case since school started. Claims he was staring at her in the library." Zara watched as Jackson tried to gather his now soaked papers, his hands shaking slightly. "And nobody does anything?" Anthony shrugged. "Brianna's dad is some big-shot lawyer in town. Plus, she's dating Ryan Cooper, basketball team captain. People mostly stay out of her way." "Well, that's messed up," Zara muttered, setting her tray down on the nearest table. "Where are you going?" Anthony called after her, but Zara was already moving toward the scene. She reached the table just as Brianna was saying something about Jackson's secondhand clothes. Without thinking too much about what she was doing, Zara grabbed a handful of napkins from a nearby dispenser and held them out to Jackson. "Here," she said, ignoring Brianna completely. "These might help." Jackson looked up, surprise and gratitude flickering across his face as he took the napkins. "Thanks. Excuse me?" Brianna's voice had an edge to it that could cut glass. "We're in the middle of something here." Zara turned to face her, taking in the designer clothes, the immaculate makeup, the cold eyes that were now fixed on her with obvious annoyance. "Looks to me like you were just leaving," she said calmly. A hush fell over the surrounding tables. Brianna's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up, and her friends exchanged glances that said this was about to get interesting. "Do you know who I am?" Brianna asked, stepping closer to Zara. "Not really," Zara replied with a shrug. "And honestly, I don't care. But I do know you're making a scene over spilled milk, which seems pretty childish to me." Someone in the crowd let out a low "ooh," and Brianna's cheeks flushed pink. "You're that new girl," she said, her eyes narrowing. "The one whose daddy is the new police chief, right? Thinks he can come in here and change everything overnight." Zara felt a flicker of unease, so Brianna knew who her father was. That could complicate things. "My name is Zara," she said evenly, "and this has nothing to do with my dad. This is about you picking on someone half your size because, what, it makes you feel important?" Brianna's eyes widened, and for a moment Zara thought she might actually lash out physically. Instead, a slow, cold smile spread across her face. "Well, Zara," she said, pronouncing the name like it tasted bad, "since you're so concerned about little Jackson here, why don't you help him clean up his mess? I'm sure you're good at cleaning up after others. Isn't that what your people do best?" The racist undertone wasn't subtle, and Zara felt a hot flash of anger. But her father's words echoed in her mind. "Walk away if you can. Some fights aren't worth having." Taking a deep breath, Zara turned back to Jackson, who was watching the exchange with wide eyes. "Come on," she said. "Let's go find the janitor. They probably have something better than napkins for this." As they walked away, Brianna called after them. "That's right, run along. And tell your dad that not everyone in this town is happy about his progressive policies. Some of us like things just fine the way they were." Once they were out of the cafeteria, Jackson let out a shaky breath. "You shouldn't have done that. She's going to make your life hell now." Zara shrugged, trying to seem more confident than she felt. "I've dealt with worse." They found the janitor, who helped Jackson clean his backpack and salvage most of his papers. As they worked, Jackson told Zara that Brianna had deliberately bumped into him as he was walking to his table. "She's been like this since elementary school," he explained. "Some people just get meaner as they get older, I guess." "Well, she picked the wrong day and the wrong person," Zara said firmly. By the time they returned to the cafeteria, lunch was almost over. Lily waved Zara over to their table, her expression a mix of awe and concern. "Are you crazy?" she whispered when Zara sat down. Nobody stands up to Breonna Taylor, nobody. Well, somebody should, Zara replied, taking a bite of her now cold pizza. What's the worst she can do? Lily exchanged a look with Anthony. You really don't want to find out. The rest of the day passed without incident, though Zara noticed people looking at her differently in the hallways, some with newfound respect, others with wariness as if she might be contagious. In her last class of the day, AP History, Mr. Reynolds announced a new project. You'll work in pairs, he said, writing the assignment details on the board. Research a pivotal moment in civil rights history and prepare a presentation for the class. As students began to pair up, Mr. Reynolds added, Actually, I'll be assigning partners this time. Too many of you keep working with the same people. Zara didn't mind. She didn't know many people in the class anyway. But when Mr. Reynolds called her name and paired her with Ryan Cooper, she noticed several heads turn in her direction. A tall, athletic-looking boy with dark hair and a serious expression raised his hand when his name was called. After class, he approached Zara's desk. So, you're my partner, he said, his tone neutral. I'm Ryan. Zara, she replied, gathering her books. Nice to meet you. You're the one who stood up to Breonna at lunch, he said. It wasn't a question. Zara looked at him carefully. Is that going to be a problem? I heard you two are dating. Ryan's expression was unreadable. We broke up last week. He didn't elaborate. Anyway, we should exchange numbers for the project. When are you free to work on it? They settled on meeting at the library the following afternoon, and as Zara headed home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. When she got home, her father's police cruiser was in the driveway, unusual for this time of day. She found him in the kitchen, still in uniform, looking over some papers spread across the table. Dad, everything okay? Thomas looked up, his expression tired but warm. Hey, kiddo. Just came home to grab these files. He gestured to the papers. How was school? Zara hesitated, wondering if she should mention the incident with Breonna. It was interesting. I got partnered with this guy named Ryan Cooper for a history project. Her father's eyebrows rose slightly. Cooper? As in Judge Cooper's son? I don't know, maybe. He's on the basketball team. Thomas nodded slowly. Tall kid, dark hair. Yeah, that's Judge Cooper's boy. He gathered the files into a folder. Interesting family, the Coopers. Been in Ridgewood for generations. The judge isn't always my biggest fan, but he's fair. More than I can say for some folks around here. Dad, Zara said, deciding to change the subject. What happened at the town council meeting last week? People at school were talking about it. Thomas sighed, running a hand over his face. Just doing my job, Zara. This town needs some changes and not everyone's happy about it. He checked his watch. I've got to get back to the station. We'll talk more tonight, okay? As he headed for the door, Zara called after him. Dad? Is everything going to be okay here? Thomas paused, his expression softening. It will be. Change takes time and sometimes it gets messy before it gets better. But we're making progress, he smiled. Just like you are. I'm proud of you, Zara. Remember that. After he left, Zara stood in the quiet kitchen, thinking about Breonna's words in the cafeteria, about her father's determined expression, about Ryan Cooper and his unreadable eyes. Somehow, in just 3 weeks, their lives had become entangled in the complex web of Ridgewood's history and politics, and something told her that the real challenges were only just beginning. The afternoon sun beat down on the athletic fields behind Ridgewood High as Zara gathered her books from her locker. 2 weeks had passed since her confrontation with Breonna in the cafeteria. 2 weeks of whispers when she walked down the hallway. 2 weeks of working with Ryan Cooper on their history project, which had turned out to be surprisingly pleasant. He was smart, focused, and seemed genuinely interested in the civil rights movement they were researching, and 2 weeks of feeling Breonna's cold stare following her everywhere she went. The tension had been building slowly, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Little things at first. Someone accidentally knocking her books to the floor, finding her gym clothes soaked in the shower. A crude drawing of a police officer on her locker that the janitor quickly removed. Just ignore it, Lily had advised. She'll get bored eventually. But Zara wasn't so sure. There was something personal in Breonna's hatred, something that went beyond the typical high school drama. As she closed her locker, Zara checked her phone. A text from her father. Working late tonight. Money for pizza on the counter. Lock the doors, she sighed. Another night alone. She understood why. The town council was debating her father's proposed community policing initiatives this week, and he was working overtime to gather support. But it didn't make the empty house any more welcoming. Zara headed toward the back exit, planning to take the shortcut home across the football field. Most students had already left. The hallway's quiet except for the distant sound of basketballs bouncing in the gym, where Ryan and his team were practicing. As she pushed open the heavy metal door leading to the fields, the warm spring air hit her face. She took a deep breath, feeling some of the day's tension melt away. Maybe she'd stop at the corner store and get ice cream with the pizza money. Her dad wouldn't mind. Well, look who it is. Miss High and Mighty herself. Zara froze. Brianna stood at the bottom of the concrete steps, flanked by 3 of her friends. Their expressions made it clear this wasn't a chance encounter. "I'm just heading home," Zara said calmly, trying to step around them. Brianna moved to block her path. "Not so fast. We need to talk." "I don't think we have anything to talk about." Zara kept her voice steady, even as her heart began to race. She glanced around looking for teachers or other students, but this side of the building was deserted after classes ended. "Oh, I think we do," Brianna said, stepping closer. "See, I've been doing some thinking about you and your dad. Coming into our town acting like you own the place." One of Brianna's friends, a girl with fiery red hair named Vanessa, snickered. "Yeah, telling everyone how things should be done differently." "I don't tell anyone how to do anything," Zara replied, gripping the strap of her backpack tighter. "And neither does my dad. He's just doing his job." Brianna's laugh was cold. "His job? You mean stirring up trouble? Making my dad's clients nervous? Telling the mayor that the police need to engage more with communities of color?" She made air quotes with her fingers. "Like we have some kind of problem here." Zara felt a flicker of anger. So that's what this was about. Her father's reform efforts were affecting Brianna's family somehow. "Look, I don't know what your issue is with my father. My issue," Brianna cut in, "is that your father is making things worse for everyone. And then there's you, thinking you can come in here and disrespect me in front of the whole school." Her voice hardened. "And now you're working with Ryan on that project, getting all cozy with my ex less than a month after we broke up." "That was Mr. Reynolds' decision, not mine," Zara said, trying to keep her voice level. "And Ryan and I are just working on a project together." "That's it." "Sure you are," Brianna said, her eyes narrowing. "That's why he canceled plans with his friends twice last week to meet you at the library. That's why he's suddenly so interested in civil rights." Zara took a deep breath. This was getting out of hand. "I'm going home now," she said firmly, attempting once more to step around the group. This time, Brianna didn't just block her, she shoved her. Hard, caught off guard. Zara stumbled backward, nearly falling on the concrete steps. "What is wrong with you?" she gasped, regaining her balance. "You're what's wrong," Brianna spat. "You and your father thinking you can change everything. Thinking you're better than us." "I never said that," Zara protested, but Brianna was already advancing on her again. "I saw you two at the diner last weekend," she continued, her voice rising. "Sitting there like you owned the place. My grandmother helped build this town when your people were still—" "My people?" Zara interrupted, unable to hold back her anger any longer. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Brianna smirked. "You know exactly what I mean." That's when Zara noticed Vanessa had her phone out recording the confrontation. The realization sent a chill through her. This wasn't just a spontaneous confrontation. They had planned this. "I'm leaving," Zara said firmly, trying to push past them. But Brianna grabbed her arm, her nails digging into Zara's skin. "We're not done talking. Let go of me." Zara tried to pull away, but Brianna's grip tightened. "Or what? You'll call your daddy to arrest me?" Vanessa and the other girls laughed, still recording. "Let go." Zara's voice was low, warning. Instead, Brianna shoved her again, harder this time. Zara lost her footing and fell, her backpack spilling open on the ground. Books and papers scattered across the dirt. "Oops," Brianna said with mock concern. "Looks like you dropped something." As Zara scrambled to gather her things, one of the other girls, a tall, athletic blonde named Heather, kicked her history textbook out of reach. "Stop it," Zara shouted, getting to her feet. "Or what?" Brianna challenged, stepping right into Zara's space. "What are you going to do about it?" Her father's words echoed in Zara's mind. "Walk away if you can. Tell a teacher. Call me if it gets serious, but there were no teachers here." and calling her father would only prove Brianna's point, that she couldn't handle her own problems. "I'm not going to do anything," Zara said quietly. "I'm going to go home and you're going to go wherever it is you go when you're not making other people miserable." Something flickered in Brianna's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or disappointment that Zara wasn't taking the bait. Then her expression hardened again. "Wrong answer," she hissed and shoved Zara once more, sending her sprawling onto the dirt. This time it hurt. Zara felt the sting of gravel against her palms, the jolt of pain as her knee hit the ground. When she looked up, she saw other students had begun to gather at a distance, drawn by the commotion. Some had their phones out recording, but no one stepped forward to help. "Get up," Brianna demanded, standing over her. "I'm not done with you yet." Slowly, Zara rose to her feet, dusting off her jeans. Her knee was bleeding, her palms raw, but it was the humiliation that burned hottest, the knowledge that people were watching, recording, doing nothing. "You're pathetic," Zara said quietly, meeting Brianna's gaze. "You know that, right? Picking a fight because you're what? Jealous? Scared? Both?" Brianna's face flushed with anger. "I'm not scared of you." "No," Zara agreed. "You're scared of change. Scared that maybe your family isn't as important as they used to be. Scared that people like my dad are going to make this town a place where you can't just do whatever you want. Because your father's a lawyer." The slap came fast, an open palm across Zara's cheek that snapped her head to the side and left, her ears ringing. For a moment everything went still. Even Brianna seemed shocked by what she'd done. Then something in Zara snapped. All the training sessions with her father in their garage back home, all the techniques he'd taught her just in case, it all came rushing back. Without thinking, she shifted her weight, turned her body, and used Brianna's own momentum against her. A simple redirection, just like her dad had shown her. Not a punch, not a kick, just a strategic push at the right moment that sent Brianna stumbling backward, landing hard on her backside in the dirt. The crowd gasped. Vanessa stopped recording, her mouth hanging open. Brianna looked up at Zara, stunned disbelief on her face. You pushed me," she sputtered. "No," came a stern voice from behind them. "That would be self-defense." Zara turned to see Mrs. Patterson, the vice principal, striding toward them, her expression thunderous. Behind her was Ryan Cooper, still in his basketball practice clothes, breathing hard as if he'd run all the way from the gym. "I saw everything," Mrs. Patterson said, her eyes moving from Brianna on the ground to Zara's bleeding knee and red cheek, or at least the end of it. "Would someone like to explain what's going on here?" Brianna scrambled to her feet, her confident demeanor instantly replaced by wide-eyed innocence. "Mrs. Patterson, she attacked me. I was just trying to talk to her and she went crazy." "That's not true," Zara began, but Mrs. Patterson held up a hand. "Save it. Both of you to my office now." Her gaze swept over the gathered students. "The rest of you go home. Unless you have actual practice or club meetings, there's no reason for you to be on school grounds." As the crowd reluctantly dispersed, Ryan approached Zara. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I heard shouting from the gym and came to check." Before she could answer, Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat. "Mr. Cooper, I believe you have basketball practice to return to." Ryan nodded, but his eyes stayed on Zara's. "I'll call you later," he murmured before jogging back toward the gym. 20 minutes later, Zara sat in the hard plastic chair outside Principal Wilson's office, holding an ice pack to her cheek. Inside, she could hear Brianna's tearful voice, claiming she'd been attacked without provocation. Mrs. Patterson had taken statements from both girls but said the final decision about consequences would be up to the principal. Zara had tried calling her father, but he wasn't answering, probably in that important meeting he'd mentioned. The office door opened and Brianna emerged, eyes red but a satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She didn't look at Zara as she passed, but her message was clear. She thought she'd won. "Miss Johnson," Principal Wilson called from inside the office. "Please come in." Zara stood, her legs feeling oddly unsteady. As she entered the office, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glass door. Hair disheveled, dirt on her clothes, a red mark blooming on her cheek. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Things at Ridgewood High would never be the same. Both students will be suspended for 3 days, effective immediately. Principal Wilson's words hung in the air of his office as Zara stared at him in disbelief. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. Both, Zara finally managed to say, but she attacked me. I was just defending myself. Principal Wilson, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and thinning gray hair, folded his hands on his desk. Miss Johnson, Ridgewood High has a zero-tolerance policy for physical altercations. Mrs. Patterson witnessed you pushing Miss Taylor to the ground. After she slapped me, Zara pointed to her cheek, which was still red and beginning to swell. And that was after she shoved me twice and made racist comments. Did Mrs. Patterson mention that part? The principal's expression remained unchanged. She mentioned that there appeared to be an ongoing dispute between you two. However, without clear evidence of who instigated the physical contact, there is evidence, Zara interrupted. Vanessa was recording the whole thing on her phone. So were other students. For the first time, Principal Wilson looked uncertain. I wasn't aware of any recordings. Of course you weren't, Zara said bitterly. Brianna wouldn't mention that part, would she? The principal cleared his throat. Well, if such recordings exist, they would certainly be relevant to our investigation. However, until we can review them, the suspension stands. I've already called your father, but he didn't answer. I left a message asking him to pick you up. Zara's stomach dropped. Her father was going to be furious, not at her, but at the situation, at the injustice of it. And he'd be disappointed that she hadn't walked away like he'd always taught her. Can I at least get my things from my locker? She asked quietly. Principal Wilson nodded. Mrs. Lee will accompany you. Then you'll wait in the front office until your father arrives. As Zara stood to leave, the principal added, Miss Johnson, I understand this is difficult, but rules are rules. We can't have students resolving conflicts with physical force regardless of the circumstances. Zara paused at the door. So we're just supposed to let people like Brianna hurt us? Say whatever they want to us? That's the lesson here? Before he could answer, the office phone rang. Principal Wilson held up a finger, signaling for Zara to wait as he answered. Yes, he's here now? The principal's voice changed subtly, becoming more formal, almost nervous. Of course, send him in. He hung up and looked at Zara with an expression she couldn't quite read. It seems your father received my message after all. Moments later, the door opened and Chief Thomas Johnson stepped into the office in full uniform, his face a mask of controlled concern. His eyes went immediately to the mark on Zara's cheek. Zara, are you all right? He asked, moving to her side. I'm fine, Dad, she mumbled, suddenly feeling both relieved and embarrassed. Thomas turned to the principal, his posture straight and professional. Mr. Wilson, I understand there was an incident involving my daughter. Principal Wilson stood, extending his hand. Chief Johnson, thank you for coming so quickly. Yes, there was an altercation between Zara and another student. As I was just explaining to her, our policy requires... I'd like to know exactly what happened, Thomas interrupted, his voice calm but authoritative. From the beginning, the principal gestured to the chair Zara had vacated. Please have a seat. For the next 10 minutes, Zara listened as Principal Wilson explained the situation as he understood it, or rather, as Brianna had presented it. According to his version, Zara had confronted Brianna after school, things had escalated, and Zara had pushed Brianna to the ground when Mrs. Patterson intervened. Thomas listened without interrupting, his expression giving nothing away. When the principal finished, he simply asked, And what is your evidence for this sequence of events? Well, Mrs. Patterson witnessed the end of the incident, Thomas finished for him. Not the beginning, not what led up to it. That's correct, and did you speak with any other witnesses? There must have been other students present. Principal Wilson shifted uncomfortably. We took statements from Miss Taylor's friends who were with her. I see, Thomas said, his voice even. And did you ask if anyone had recorded the incident? Most kids have their phones out these days, especially when there's a conflict brewing. The principal glanced at Zara, who was watching her father with growing admiration. He was handling this exactly as he would any investigation, methodically, without emotion clouding his judgment. Zara mentioned that there might be recordings, yes. We haven't had a chance to... I'd like to see them, Thomas said. Before any disciplinary action is taken, Principal Wilson cleared his throat. Chief Johnson, with all due respect, I've already made my decision. Both students will be suspended for 3 days per our zero-tolerance policy. Thomas leaned forward slightly. Mr. Wilson, I understand the importance of school policies, but I also understand the importance of due process and evidence. My daughter has a mark on her face that suggests she was struck. She claims she was defending herself after being assaulted. If there's evidence that could clarify what actually happened, wouldn't you want to review it before punishing a potential victim? The tension in the room was palpable. Principal Wilson looked torn between standing his ground and acknowledging the logic of Thomas's argument. Finally, he sighed. I suppose we could delay implementation of the suspension until tomorrow, giving us time to review any available recordings. He looked at his watch. However, it's nearly 5 o'clock now and I have a dinner engagement this evening. I understand, Thomas said, rising from his chair. First thing tomorrow morning, then. We'll bring any evidence we can gather. In the meantime, I'll take Zara home. As they walked through the empty hallways, Zara waited until they were out of earshot before whispering, Dad, I'm sorry. I know you always told me to walk away, but... Thomas stopped and turned to face her. Did you throw the first punch? Or push, or whatever happened out there? No, Zara said firmly. She shoved me twice and slapped me. I only pushed her to get her away from me. Thomas nodded. Then you have nothing to apologize for. Self-defense isn't the same as starting a fight. He gently touched her cheek. We should put some ice on that when we get home. Principal Wilson already gave me an ice pack, Zara said. It doesn't hurt that much anymore. They continued walking and Zara felt a wave of relief washing over her. Her father believed her. He wasn't angry. Dad, she said as they reached the parking lot, Brianna said some things. About you. About your new policies. I think that's partly why she's been targeting me. Thomas's expression darkened slightly. What did she say? That you're stirring up trouble. That your policies about community engagement are making her dad's clients nervous. Zara hesitated. Her dad's a lawyer, apparently. Harold Taylor, Thomas said with a nod. Yes, I know who he is. He represents half the businesses in town, including some that haven't been too enthusiastic about our new transparency initiatives. They reached his police cruiser, and Thomas opened the passenger door for Zara. Once they were both inside, he didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, he sat quietly for a moment, his hands resting on the steering wheel. Zara, he said finally, sometimes doing the right thing makes people uncomfortable. Sometimes it even makes them angry, especially if they've benefited from things staying the way they were. Is that what's happening here? With your job? Thomas sighed. Ridgewood has had its share of problems over the years. Selective enforcement of laws, complaints about police harassment in certain neighborhoods being ignored, business deals that somehow always benefit the same group of families. He glanced at her. When Mayor Chen hired me, she was very clear about what she wanted. A police department that serves all citizens equally. Some people in town don't like that idea. Like Brianna's dad? Among others, Thomas said, starting the car. But that doesn't excuse what his daughter did to you today. And it certainly doesn't mean you should have to just take it. As they drove home, Zara's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Ryan. Heard what happened. You okay? I have something that might help. Before she could respond, another message came through. This one from Lily. OMG, just saw the video Vanessa posted. She didn't mean to help you, but she totally did. Dad, Zara said, looking up from her phone. I think Brianna's friend accidentally helped us out. The following morning, Thomas and Zara arrived at Ridgewood High 30 minutes before classes were set to begin. They were directed to the conference room next to Principal Wilson's office, where they found not only the principal, but also Vice Principal Patterson, the school counselor Dr. Barnes, and to Zara's surprise, Harold Taylor and Brianna. Harold Taylor was exactly as Zara had imagined him, tall, expensively dressed, with the same cold blue eyes as his daughter. When they entered, he was in the middle of what appeared to be a heated conversation with Principal Wilson, but he fell silent at the sight of Thomas in his chief's uniform. Chief Johnson, Principal Wilson said, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. Thank you for coming. And Zara, we were just discussing the situation with Mr. Taylor. I understand my daughter is being accused of assaulting a fellow student, Harold Taylor said, his tone clipped and professional. A serious allegation that I find hard to believe. Thomas nodded politely. Mr. Taylor, I don't believe we've formally met, though I've seen you at town council meetings. He turned to Principal Wilson. Before we go any further, I think it would be helpful to review the evidence we discussed yesterday. He pulled out his phone and placed it on the conference table. With your permission, I'd like to play a video that's been circulating among the students. Principal Wilson looked uncomfortable but nodded. Please proceed. Thomas tapped his screen and Vanessa's recording began to play. The video quality was surprisingly good, capturing the entire confrontation from the moment Brianna blocked Zara's path to the slap and Zara's defensive move. The audio was clear too, including Brianna's comments about "your people" and her admission that she was upset about Thomas's policing initiatives. As the video played, the room grew increasingly tense. Brianna stared at the table, her face flushed. Her father's expression hardened with each passing second. When it ended with Mrs. Patterson's arrival, there was a moment of complete silence. Then Harold Taylor cleared his throat. "I'd like a moment alone with my daughter, please." "Of course," your Principal Wilson said quickly. "You can use my office." After they left, Dr. Barnes, the counselor, spoke for the first time. "That video certainly provides context that we didn't have yesterday." Zara was clearly defending herself. Mrs. Patterson nodded, looking embarrassed. "I only saw the very end. I had no idea what preceded it." Principal Wilson removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Chief Johnson, Zara, I owe you both an apology. It seems I acted hastily yesterday based on incomplete information." "You did," Thomas agreed calmly. "But I understand you were doing your job as you saw it. The important thing now is making this right." When the Taylors returned 10 minutes later, both looked subdued. Harold spoke first. "Principal Wilson, my daughter has something she'd like to say." Brianna stepped forward, her eyes downcast. "I lied about what happened yesterday. Zara didn't attack me. I started it." She glanced at her father, who nodded encouragingly. "I've been giving her a hard time since she got here, and yesterday I went too far. I'm sorry." The apology sounded rehearsed and not particularly sincere, but Zara appreciated it nonetheless. It was more than she had expected. Principal Wilson cleared his throat. "Given this new information, I'm rescinding Zara's suspension immediately. Brianna, however, will serve a 5-day suspension, and will be implementing a restorative justice program when you return, which will include—" "Actually," Thomas interrupted gently, "if I may make a suggestion, I've seen firsthand how punitive measures alone rarely solve these kinds of problems." He looked at Brianna. "What if instead of just suspension, Brianna participated in our department's youth outreach program? It might give her a different perspective on what we're trying to accomplish in this community." Harold Taylor looked surprised. "You'd be willing to include her? After what she did to your daughter?" Thomas nodded. "This isn't about punishment. It's about growth and understanding. Isn't that what we all want for our kids?" As the adults continued discussing options, Zara caught Brianna looking at her with an expression that wasn't quite remorse, but wasn't the usual hostility either. It was something closer to curiosity, maybe even a grudging respect. Whatever happened next, Zara realized, things had already changed. Not just for her and Brianna, but perhaps for Ridgewood itself. 6 months later, the leaves on the trees surrounding Ridgewood High had turned golden and red, carpeting the ground with autumn colors. Zara stood at the podium in the school auditorium, looking out at the sea of faces before her. Students, teachers, parents, and community members filled every seat, their attention focused on her. "When I moved to Ridgewood last spring," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I didn't know what to expect. New town, new school, new people. What I found was a community in the middle of change, sometimes difficult, sometimes beautiful, but always necessary." In the front row, her father watched with pride, his police uniform replaced today by a simple button-down shirt and slacks. Beside him sat Mayor Chen, who had become a regular visitor to their home for strategy sessions about community initiatives. On his other side was Mrs. Patterson, now one of Zara's strongest supporters at school. "The cultural awareness program we're launching today isn't just about learning facts about different cultures or histories," Zara continued. "It's about understanding each other's stories. It's about recognizing that a community isn't strong despite its differences. It's strong because of them." From her spot at the podium, Zara could see Lily beaming at her from the student section. Next to Lily was Ryan, who caught her eye and gave her a subtle thumbs up. Their history project had earned them an A+, and somewhere along the way, their study sessions had turned into something more. Not officially dating, not yet, but moving in that direction with a comfortable patience that felt right to both of them. "This program wouldn't exist without the support of many people," Zara said, turning to the next page of her speech. Principal Wilson, who found funding in the school budget, Dr. Barnes, who helped design the curriculum, the student council, who volunteered to be the first peer leaders. She paused, taking a deep breath. And I want to especially thank Brianna Taylor, whose participation in the police department's youth outreach program inspired some of our key activities. At the mention of her name, Brianna, sitting toward the back of the student section, looked up in surprise. She hadn't expected to be acknowledged, especially not positively. The last 6 months had changed her too. Not dramatically, not overnight, but in small, significant ways that were visible to those who knew where to look. After her suspension, Brianna had grudgingly joined Chief Johnson's youth outreach program as an alternative to further disciplinary action. 3 afternoons a week for a month, she had helped organize community events, participated in dialogue sessions between police officers and teenagers, and, most significantly, assisted with an after-school program in the very neighborhood she had once dismissed as not really part of Ridgewood. It hadn't been an easy process. The first few sessions had been tense, with Brianna maintaining a wall of sullen resistance. But Thomas Johnson was nothing if not patient. He assigned her to work with Officer Garcia, a young woman whose own story of overcoming prejudice gradually broke through Brianna's defenses. By the end of the month, something had shifted. Not a complete transformation. Brianna was still Brianna. Still proud, still quick to judge, but there were cracks in her armor, glimpses of a person capable of growth. The truth is, Zara continued, her eyes scanning the audience, we all have blind spots. We all have assumptions and biases that need to be challenged. This program isn't about pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's about creating spaces where we can have honest conversations, where we can make mistakes and learn from them, where we can build a community that truly works for everyone. As she spoke, Zara thought about how much had changed since that confrontation on the school steps. The video of Brianna's assault had spread quickly through the student body, despite efforts to contain it. For a week or two, Brianna had faced the kind of social isolation she had once inflicted on others. Some had expected Zara to gloat, to enjoy her former tormentor's fall from grace. Instead, Zara had surprised everyone, including herself, by publicly asking students to stop sharing the video, to give Brianna space to reflect and change. Using someone's worst moment to define them forever isn't justice, she had written in a post that was shared throughout the school's social networks. It's just another kind of bullying. That post had earned her respect from unexpected quarters, including from Harold Taylor himself. The prominent lawyer had approached Thomas after a town council meeting, awkwardly extending his hand and mumbling something about raising a daughter with integrity. The two men weren't friends. Their fundamental disagreements about the direction of Ridgewood remained, but there was a new civility to their interactions, a recognition that they both wanted what was best for the town, even if they sometimes defined best differently. So today, Zara said, reaching the conclusion of her speech, as we officially launch this program, I want to challenge all of us, myself included, to be brave enough to listen, humble enough to learn, and committed enough to change, because that's how we build the kind of community where everyone can thrive. The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Principal Wilson returned to the podium to thank Zara and introduce the next speaker, and Zara made her way back to her seat, accepting handshakes and congratulations along the way. As the ceremony continued, Zara found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The night after the confrontation with Brianna, she had cried in her father's arms, overwhelmed by the stress and fear and anger she had been holding inside. I just wanted to fit in, she had sobbed. I just wanted to go to school without feeling like a target. Thomas had held her, letting her release all the emotions she had been carefully controlling. I know, he had said softly, and you deserve that. Every kid does. That night had been a turning point. Instead of trying to keep their professional and personal lives separate, Thomas had started talking more openly with Zara about his work, about the challenges he faced, about his vision for what Ridgewood could become, and Zara had started sharing more about her experiences at school, not just the bad days but the good ones too. Together, they had realized that the problems at Ridgewood High reflected the larger issues in the town. The social hierarchies, the unspoken rules about who belonged where, the resistance to change, these weren't unique to the school hallways. They were embedded in the community's structures and habits. And if they wanted things to change, they would need allies. It had started small, conversations with Lily and her parents, with Ryan and his basketball teammates, with Jackson Miller and other students who had experienced bullying. Principal Wilson, initially defensive about his handling of the incident, had gradually become a supporter after several frank discussions with Thomas about the school's disciplinary policies. Zara had been surprised to find how many people were eager for change, how many had just been waiting for someone to take the first step. The cultural awareness program had grown from these conversations, evolving from a simple anti-bullying initiative into something more comprehensive and far-reaching. After the ceremony, people mingled in the school lobby, enjoying refreshments and discussing the new program. Zara was surrounded by well-wishers, but across the room she noticed Brianna standing alone by the water fountain, looking uncomfortable. Excusing herself, Zara made her way through the crowd. When she reached Brianna, they stood in awkward silence for a moment. "You did good up there," Brianna finally said, not quite meeting Zara's eyes. "The speech, I mean." "Thanks," Zara replied. "I meant what I said about your contribution. The peer mediation idea that came from something you suggested in the outreach program." Brianna looked surprised. "I didn't think anyone was listening. Officer Garcia was. She told my dad, who told me." Zara hesitated. "It was a good idea." Another silence fell between them, heavier with unspoken words. They weren't friends, probably never would be, but they had reached a kind of truce that felt significant. "My dad's firm is providing pro bono legal services to the community center," Brianna said suddenly. "The one in Pine Ridge neighborhood. He's helping them secure grants for after-school programs." Zara raised her eyebrows. Harold Taylor, offering free legal services to the very neighborhood he had once dismissed as not worth the investment? "That was unexpected. That's really great," she said sincerely. Brianna shrugged, but there was a hint of pride in her voice when she replied, "He says it's good business sense, building relationships across the community or something." She paused. "But I think maybe he's actually starting to get it. What your dad's been saying all along." Before Zara could respond, Ryan appeared at her side. "Sorry to interrupt, but your dad's looking for you. The mayor wants a photo with you for the town newsletter." Zara nodded, then turned back to Brianna. "I should go. But hey, the first peer leader training is Tuesday after school. We could use someone with your organizational skills." It was a peace offering. Not quite friendship, but an acknowledgement of possibility. Brianna seemed to understand it for what it was. "Maybe," she said with a small nod. "I'll think about it." As Zara walked away with Ryan, he squeezed her hand. That looked intense. "You okay?" Zara glanced back at Brianna, who was now talking with Heather, one of her friends from the old days. "Yeah, I am. We all are." Across the lobby, she caught her father's eye. He was deep in conversation with Mayor Chen, but he paused to give Zara a smile and a nod that spoke volumes. Pride, yes, but also something else. A shared understanding of what they had accomplished together and what still remained to be done. Ridgewood wasn't perfect. Change never happened as quickly or as completely as you hoped. Old habits died hard, and progress often came in fits and starts. But looking around at the diverse group of people gathered in the school lobby, talking, laughing, planning together, Zara felt a surge of hope. This was what community could look like when people were brave enough to cross boundaries, to challenge assumptions, to see each other as fully human. This was the Ridgewood that could be, that was already beginning to be, and she was proud to be part of it.